Hey, Horror Movie Night. This week we are talking about 1982's Nightbeast as picked by Brian. So, Brian, the floor is yours.
So about Nightbeast, I saw the picture when we watched it on the movie, and I was like, we have to pick that. I realized that I am officially a co-host of this show. I've gotten to a point where I am ingrained in this show, and there's a simple test, right? When you first get on this show, you see that fucking trauma in the beginning, and you're like, oh fuck, it's trauma. And then after a while, you're just like, oh fuck, it's trauma. And that's exactly because I didn't know when I picked it that it was a trauma film, and then I saw it and I was like, oh fuck my ass, it's trauma.
So, it is and it isn't. I don't think Troma has the rights to this one anymore. I think this is now a Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah, it is.
This was like one of those ones where Lloyd Kaufman helped produce a documentary about the maker of Nightbeast called Blood, Boobs, and Beast. And in doing that, he also acquired the rights to the movie Nightbeast to make the documentary, and then was like, well, fuck it, we'll put it out on DVD. So, like, it was I wouldn't consider this true to Troma canon as much as this movie already had, like, a cult following as being a B horror film before Troma ever came into the picture.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, the first 10 to 20 minutes, I thought I was so happy with my choice. And then
this movie is like 90, like the first 15 minutes is like 30 deaths.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many people that get fucking murdered in this.
I know. And I was like, man, at first, keep in mind, this is my first time watching. So the first 15, 20 minutes is like, dude, I might throw this in the fucking hat for our pilot just because as the editor, I selfishly was like, oh, I could have some fun editing some fucking skits around this, you know, just like the cheesy lasers and everything.
Yeah.
And then it just turned to a bad movie quickly.
We've said this before. You know, last week we did Horror at Party Beach, and I feel like my feelings of horror on Party Beach are similar to Nightbeast, where when Horror at Party Beach is the actual party beach and there's a horror happening at it, it's great. And when there's a beast at night killing people, this movie's great. But in both cases, when it goes to like the scientists, or in this case, the police officers trying to solve the mystery of the Nightbeast or Horror at Party Beach, loses my interest.
Yeah.
Like, real quick.
What made me lose interest in this movie is all the fucking shootouts.
Mm-hmm. Dude.
It's absurd.
How many times is it going to take when they're finally going to be like, you know what? Bullets aren't killing this thing. They never learn. They never learn.
Well, let's talk about the first 10 minutes, because I feel like we could do a full episode just on the first 10 minutes of this movie, because there's so much. But, like, it starts off with what I swear to God was a Star Wars toy that we used to have at our house as a spaceship that crash lands into the woods. And then in a total, like, styrofoam cup type way, this guy just goes, what the hell was that? And his two buddies are passed out through an entire explosion, like a massive explosion in the woods. And his two buddies are still just fast asleep, unaffected by it.
Oh, man.
But then, yeah, like, you see this monster, and it's like shooting people with a laser gun, and they're just turning it into cartoon animations of a person before they disintegrate, and it's pretty great.
It's so much fun. It's like, why couldn't it keep this pace? And the movie's not long.
No, it's like...
It really does feel long, though.
Yeah.
The first, like, 20 minutes fly by, and then the hour feels like a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, tune in for next week where I feel similarly about certain things. But they kill the three guys in the woods. They immediately introduce this uncle and his two, like, nephews or whatever. Knock them off. And I love, like, the effect of the uncle, like, flops out of the car and his eyeballs dangling out of his face. And it's cheesy props, but it you know, it does something for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, they kill the kids very anticlimactically. And then it's like, well, that's 6, but I feel like we could do more. So the monster also just goes to someone's house to rip out a dude's guts at the front door. Like, it's insane how many people he kills in the first 10 minutes of this movie. But then we introduce the cop. And the cop looks like he stepped right off the set of Nightbeast onto the set of Sleepaway Camp, because he's just got like that big old bushy beard and his big fro and no ability to emote when he acts. And
it's
like,
dude.
I don't think that you can criticize him as much as you can criticize the old woman scientist, because she's quite possibly the worst actor on that we've had like to discuss
Yeah.
in a year.
Well, they're a shitty duo. Her and her husband. Was that her husband?
I thought it was her son, but I mean, he's old enough to be. She's old enough to be his mom.
Yeah.
So
Look, the
I don't know.
ages of all the characters in this movie are wild. There's a 50s greaser who's in his 50s at one point in this movie.
Oh, Drago.
Yeah.
Also, the guy randomly is like, "Oh, I'm just gonna like strangle people to death."
Dude,
Yeah.
and listen, if you're trying to portray domestic violence, which is a very serious thing, could you not do the Looney Tunes where you go to wrap your arms around someone and they duck under you and you fall into a chair?
I specifically remember that scene. You want to fight? Then let's fight.
Yeah.
I'm like, he doesn't want to fight, you psychopath. But the other thing that I remember so vividly about that scene is that the room that his like
Oh yeah, like it looks like they're on the set of Pink Flamingos.
Yeah.
Like
it's literally
it's like an RV. It's a bedroom in an RV.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And the most ridiculous thing about it, which is the most ridiculous thing in a ridiculous 5x5 square, is the fact that she's laying on like the bed, quote unquote, is literally like Vietnam War fucking cot. You know what I'm talking about?
Well,
like my grandpa had one of those in his basement. They're so uncomfortable. And then above it, she has a beer can collection. Well, I don't know why these things bother me so much.
And so the thing that bothered me is that you have this like domestic abuse scene, and then it just turns into like this awkward, unnecessary nude scene where she's just like, well, time to strip slowly and then start packing a bag. And it's like, I don't need to see this scene. I don't think that it's unnatural for her to make that decision. I just think it's weird that we have to watch it happening in real time because it's not like, it doesn't work. Well, this movie's got a lot. There's one of the lines that I wrote down. I didn't actually write the dialogue down, but there's a scene where the cop car's driving to like investigate, and it is such an incredible ADR of just like, I'm not sure about this. Yes, we'll have to check it out. And it's just like the shot of a car driving towards the camera while that happens. And all I can think of, again, is my favorite ADR, which is Orgasmo. He's like, I'm really excited you're coming to my house, Joe. I can't wait to show you the things that are there. Did you say something? Nah, just thinking. But yeah, the ADR throughout this movie during driving scenes is horrendous. The acting is horrendous. But I mean, it's a shitty rubber suit, but I love the fucking Nightbeast every time I see it with its permanent smile on its face.
He's just really happy about killing.
Oh, he loves it. It's like he just came here for one reason and one reason only. Later on in the movie, we get to see just the most awkward, pasty sex scene with like a piano score.
Oh my God. Why though?
I have no clue.
I don't that wasn't his girlfriend, right? And
look, I think it was to cross off the word boobs on the list of 3 beebs.
But they already got boobs with the girl who got strangled earlier on. So
I just want to quote our good friend Kyle on a recent episode where if it's the 80s and you only get half a boob, that's almost like -2 boobs. So you had to add some extra in there. You're like, all right, we got to make sure everyone's happy and titillating.
So in that scene, the way that she seduces him is, I actually wrote down the lines. Are you embarrassed, Jack? They get to this room, and I'm going to be honest with you, I was skipping a little bit because I was so tired of the bullshit. And they get to this room, and I see her like messing with his pants, and I'm like, oh wait, this is probably important. So I rewind.
Scott's sitting out there watching. He goes, "I got a boner."
No, I was not aroused by this sex scene. Anyway, so she somehow tells him that he has to take his pants off, and he's like, doesn't want to, and she's like, "Are you embarrassed, Jack?" No, of course not. Good, let's get those pants off. That's the inflection, and those are the lines.
I always remember this scene, and I think it's in Naked Gun, but it might be in another movie, but it's right before a sex scene where someone's suit literally just tears in half, like seamlessly. Like they just like pull it off like someone taking off a dress. And I know that that's not how it happened in this movie, but in my mind's eye, as I'm trying to remember the scene, that's how it happened. Is that his suit just like literally just came to pieces immediately, and I was staring at a white old pasty ass just right dead center of the camera for way too long.
Yeah.
That's what that's why I really appreciate movies like Demon Wind, where if you're gonna have a man ass, at least it's like a a muscular,
young,
tanned,
nice toy ass.
yeah. They make sure that ass is tight. Yeah. Megan hates that voice, so I think I'm gonna be using it for the rest of the episode.
This is like a one. So the fun thing about this pick was that it was on my list for a while, but it was on like the long list. And then Brian was like, "I think I'm gonna go with Nightbeast." And I was like, "Well, you can take that bullet." And,
Yeah.
I actually was like, "Wait, who picked this shit?"
Yeah, it was. I forget what movie we had watched. It was something that we had recently watched, and Nightbeast was on. You may also be interested in. And I just saw the picture of it, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" And boy, was I wrong. I didn't know that people were going to be that tired during filming. Like every conversation just reminds me of the intro to any Lonely Island song that Andy Samberg isn't on. Like we like sports and those things where it's just like, oh, so you've also been having sex. Like that just dead voice the entire movie is very puts you to sleep. It puts you to sleep.
What about that decapitation scene in the basement, though?
That was dank because it looked like the pirates from the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I was a big fan of that. It's like one of those things where it's like, I'm so quick to judge because I immediately jumped on and made fun of it. But also it's like, could I have done better? And I don't think I could have. But I also don't make real movies. So I guess that's not a good excuse.
Yeah, like we can talk as much shit as we want to because we're amateur movie critics, right? Like we criticize movies or we critique movies no one cares about anymore. So, it's fine. We can do what we want.
Yeah.
Some would argue most people didn't care about these movies when they came out.
Yeah.
If anything, us talking about it's the most attention some of these movies got. I'm looking at you, Alligator 2, The Mutation.
Yeah, you know what? If my dad, who's a coal miner, can criticize politicians and coaches, I can criticize film directors.
It's a movie, sort of. Like I said, I do recommend the Blood, Beast, and Boobs doc. It's a nice 66 minutes. That gives you a little bit more of an insight on the guy who made this, and he just seems like a weird guy who kind of just got stuck directing horror films, but was like, whatever. I mean, it's fun. He seems to like fans. He likes just shooting movies with his friends, but yeah, it sounds like every one of his movies, he's like, well, I have an RV in the back of the wood. Like, he had woods in the back of his house. He's like, well, we got a bathtub, and we got an RV, and we've got woods. Let's just try to work those into everything we make.
That explains a lot. So my plan was that I was going to watch that because I knew that this was coming up, and I had the YouTube link. I was like ready to go. It's like, okay, I'll do it as soon as I watch Nightbeast. It takes me forever to watch Nightbeast. And then I'm like, motherfucker, they took down the documentary while I was waiting to watch Nightbeast. So I never got to watch it. But I just think that's so funny that somebody did a DMCA takedown on YouTube for Blood, Beast, and Boobs.
I still think that there's something charming about, like, I think that Nightbeast is one of those films where, like, yes, it's bad. Yes, it's poorly made. It's got some really weird choices throughout it, but it has that thing that I've always said, the difference between like a movie that's so bad that it's good and a movie that's trying to be so bad that it's good is that there's that charm of like just a bunch of friends in the woods trying their best. And like, I will give Nightbeast that credit. This is a bunch of friends in the woods trying their best.
Yes, but I do want to save the
not
listeners
the actors.
And really stress the fact that this movie is not fun.
No. Well, watch the first 15 minutes and then you can click it off.
Yeah, like the whole movie isn't fun. And this is something that we will definitely be coming back to multiple times this summer because of a lot of questionable choices have been made by all of your hosts. Because I am way ahead of the curve with getting these movies watched Anyway, so because of that, there are a lot of movies that we discuss on this show that are not good, but there are a lot of cool parts to them. And I feel like Nightbeast is that kind of movie. So don't pay for it if you don't have to. We watched it on Prime free. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. But again, you're probably just going to want to watch the parts with the rubber suit monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm sure someone's put out a supercut of that by now. But does anyone else have anything else to throw out, or should we move into those double features?
I'm done.
Hey, everybody, we'll be back with the episode in just a second, but I need to talk to you about this week's sponsor, Best Fiends. So, I have been crushing it in Best Fiends. I'm just a couple levels away from level 500, which has been my goal level. Obviously, it's going to keep going because they're always adding more levels. There's never a point where you're completely done the game, which means that there's always time to play it. So once I'm done recording all of my podcasts, you guys know I make way too many, and done all of the editing, there's nothing that helps calm me down more than just laying down in my nice, comfortable bed, and then I just play a little bit of Best Fiends. I just, swiping left and right, blowing up things, killing slugs, playing with these cute characters. It's the best way to decompress after a long day. So engage your brain with fun puzzles, collect tons of cute characters. Trust me, with over 100 million downloads, this 5-star rated mobile puzzle game is a must play. Download Best Fiends free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R, Best Fiends.
All right. So, Brian, this was your pick. What's your double feature for Nightbeast?
Ooh, my double feature would be Critters.
Huh.
And I don't know why.
Because they both come from space. I'm actually very surprised that you didn't go with what I'm picking. And Matt, I'm going to bogart you before you can say anything. I'm going to go with Extra.
Oh, Extras.
Because you loved Extra so much, Brian. I can't believe that you weren't like, yeah, fucking Extra. I'll watch Extra again.
Yeah, I know. I probably should have. And had I put thought into the double features, it might have been on there.
Yeah, but this is also, we were just talking about this the other day on Messenger, that every single time you pick a double feature, it's a surprise to everyone, including yourself.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Brian. Brian, who has on so many occasions either just picked something based on a picture, or pick something based on a memory, or pick something because he had seen a different movie in that franchise once and thought, why not? I'm surprised he hasn't picked either of the Extra sequels yet.
No, see, I can't. I'm not gonna ever pick one of those because Extra is not a movie that I look at where it's like, oh, this is so cheesy that it's good. Like, I love Extra. I think it is a masterpiece of film. And I don't want to see what they do to the sequels.
I've been told that they're pretty fucking bad.
All right, fair enough. Well, for my double feature, and this is going to sound like there's no thought put into it, but I actually pondered this for a while. I'm going with Night Flyer, the Stephen King, made-for-TV movie.
Vampire?
Yeah, so here's the reason. First of all, obviously, Nightbeast, Night Flyer seems to make sense. But also because the advertisements for both of these movies, like when they both came out on VHS, the idea was just like, I don't know, just throw the fucking monster dead front.
Right on the front.
Yeah. Like, advertise what's in this thing. Night Flyer's an okay movie, all things considered, for a made-for-TV Stephen King adaptation. It's not as bad as a lot of the other ones. I don't think I would ever pick it for the show because it is like 75% just an investigative movie where it's just like, oh, these people keep dying when they get on this plane and I need to figure out who's the pilot. And then, like, the Night Flyer doesn't come in until, like, the last 10 minutes when it's like, oh, fuck, it's a vampire.
Dude, can you imagine if we fucking watched the Langoliers for the show?
Oh, God. That might be what I think is the absolute worst Stephen King adaptation to sit through. Because it's, not only is it bad, and the CGI looks like trash even for, like, the time period that it came out, but it's also 2.5 hours long. Like, it's so long.
Yeah, but it was this, the only thing that would be fun about it is to talk about how they tried to make an event out of it. That was, okay, so for the young ones that might listen to this show that didn't live through it, in the 90s, Stephen King was massively popular, but studios learned their lesson in the 70s and 80s, but about whether or not they can make money on Stephen King books as movies. So they were just, taking whatever they could get. So they were like, okay, we're going to make this event where we have, it's 2 days or like a maxi series or whatever it was, to tell this Stephen King story. And they're all just so fucking low effort. And the Langoliers is definitely the most disappointing of them, because I specifically remember when it was on TV. I don't think I watched it on TV. I'm pretty sure that I rented the double VHS tape back when because like it was 2.5 hours long and you could only get 90 minutes, or maybe I think it might have been 100 minutes on one VHS tape. So like my Braveheart was a 2-disc set, or a 2-tape set, which was always so annoying because you'd never finish the movie. If you're a person like me, you'd put in the first tape, you'd watch it and fall asleep. So you'd watch all the good shit, and then it would go to the end of the tape, and it would automatically rewind it and turn off your TV for you. So I was doing a lot of that and not finishing movies that were the 2-tape sets. So Langoliers was one of them. I didn't own that, but it was the same kind of concept. They did Tommy Knockers. They did they do Needful Things as a TV movie. I can't remember.
So, yeah. And that's the thing. It was always these big Stephen King. It was Stephen King and Peter Benchley. Those were the two authors that constantly had these big like TV events. Storm of the Century was one. The Shining.
But that was a max series.
Yeah.
The Storm of the Century. Oh no. I think The Shining was the six-parter.
I mean,
right?
There was a ton of stuff like that. The only thing that I'll give the Langoliers, because at the time that I watched it, I was doing, and I still kind of do this, I would read the Stephen King novel or short story, and then I would immediately watch the adaptation. And the thing with the Langoliers is that it's pretty faithful to the story. It's just not a good story to begin with.
Dude, Different Seasons is not it's not very good.
Well, no. That's not Different Seasons. That's 4 Past Midnight, which is terrible. Different Seasons is
really
great.
The Langoliers is...
Yeah, Different Seasons is great. Different Seasons is Apt Pupil, Stand By Me, and Shawshank Redemption are all the stories.
No, I thought that Different Seasons had to be...
And then the fourth one is The Breathing Method.
The Breathing Method.
Yeah, which is...
Oh, but yeah, 4 Past Midnight was way thicker.
Yeah.
Because I do remember it being a thick-ass book at the library.
All right, so what have you guys watched that you want to discuss?
I recently, and by recently, I mean yesterday, finally watched the latest Star Wars movie. And
get up on that microphone, Brian.
I recently watched the most recent Star Wars movie, Rise of Skywalker. And I don't remember group consensus, but I will say I had a fucking blast. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I would say that it's my least favorite of the new trilogy, but I still liked it a lot.
What?
Yeah.
Your least favorite?
I felt like The Last Jedi. I don't think any of them were bad. I enjoyed all of them, but I felt like The Last Jedi felt the longest to me.
See, my problem is like I loved The Last Jedi. Like I think The Last Jedi is one of my all-time favorite Star Wars movies because I like that it went against what I expected it to do, and then I felt like my only problem with Rise of Skywalker is I felt like it did a lot of revisionist history to everything that happened in The Last Jedi.
It's because Rian Johnson fucked the whole story in...
I think that the problem, if we're going to place blame on anybody, I'm going to place blame
we can place it on George Lucas, yes.
Well, no. I was going to say, here's the thing. As much as people give shit to George Lucas, and I agree that shit should be given, I give a lot of shit to J.J. Abrams, because whether you like or dislike the prequels or the original trilogy, which I can't imagine, if you didn't like the original trilogy, I don't know why we're even having this discussion, but those 3 movies, for the most part, exclude the fact that the first Star Wars was written as a standalone movie. Beyond that, like Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi have a continuous, like you could tell the A to B that was those 2 movies. And the prequels, as bloated and shitty as they are, you can tell that there was a full, like, this is the 3 movie plan for this, Whereas like what clearly happened with Last Jedi was like it felt like, and I think I've heard this from other people that it actually was the case, that J.J. Abrams wrote the first movie and then was like, we'll figure out where this goes later on.
Yeah.
And it's like when you do that, then like obviously if you're going to tell the guy, hey, go with it, do whatever you feel is right, you can't then retrospectively be like, yeah, Rand just came in and fucked up everything. It's like, well, you didn't have a plan. And he like at least if nothing else, Last Jedi to me feels like it had more of an idea of what their plan was. Like, I get that Rian Johnson knew where he wanted that story to go. I don't think that J.J. Abrams knew where he wanted Force Awakens to go when he wrote it. I think he just was like, I just want to write a Star Wars movie and it'll be fun. And then everything else feels like it's written. Yeah, and it's great. I feel like everything else feels... I think that Rise of Skywalker feels very written by a committee, if that makes sense. Like, it just feels like, all right, well, we got to put this in there for these fans. We got to put this in there for these fans. And like, it works. It's a fun movie. I'm glad that I own it. I'm glad that I saw it in theaters. Like, I have no complaints about Rise of Skywalker, but there was like something that bothered me throughout it when I'm like, but this feels like we're just rewriting everything. Like,
I Matt, I know.
Yeah.
You felt like you were going through the motions, losing all my breath.
I have one.
I can't even see if this is really me.
I have one or two quarrels with the Star Wars franchise, and they're all missed opportunities.
I have 3: Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones.
You have your complaints about Chewie.
No, I'm not going to complain about Chewie. All I'm saying is missed opportunities. Not that they did something wrong, is that they didn't do something. Keep in mind, I'm a millennial, so I did grow up. The first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters was Phantom Menace. And I am one that I think that Darth Maul is quite possibly one of the coolest characters. And to take the darkest, possibly coolest character and tell the majority of his story in a children's cartoon is a missed opportunity. That's one. Number 2 is Darth Vader. He was so focused. He knew that Luke was his son. He knew that these people were his children. And he was so focused on Luke turning him to the dark side. I just wish he would have showed some father figure, like when he had Leia captive in A New Hope, just kind of pop into her pod and go, "A penny for your thoughts," just something like that. They're the only 2 things I would change in Star Wars. The rest I enjoy them all.
I have an extra thing. More Baba Frick.
Baba Frick. I just love how, okay, so if we're talking about shit that felt like it was written by a committee, when Babu Frick pops up in the very last couple minutes, he just goes, hey, now that.
But you know what? That was the part that made me the happiest during that whole movie, because I was so upset that Babu Frick was there, and then he just pops up. He's like, hey! Oh, God, I hope he pops up in the new season of the Mandalorian.
Man, I literally, this past week, Megan was like, what do you want to watch? And so this is actually going to be a great segue. So I was like, what do you want? She was like, what do you want to watch? I'm like, I want to watch the fucking Mandalorian again. She's like, I don't think I'm ready. I'm like, I'm ready.
Yeah, dude.
And we didn't start it. We didn't restart it, but oh God, I don't think I've ever been so jazzed to rewatch a TV series so quickly. But I don't know, man. It's so fun. In any case, what we did start watching is an amazing TV show that I had no idea about, and our friends Hannah and Jason told us to give it a shot. And you guys haven't said anything about it, so I'm assuming that you have not heard of it, because if you had heard of it, you would be screaming at me that we all need to watch it. It is called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Yeah, it's delightful.
Matt, I was going to say, Matt,
why the fuck haven't you said anything about it?
It's always on Hulu as recent watches.
There may be an episode on the whole series coming to my favorite episode shortly.
Oh man, it is so good. That's one of those episodes of one of your other podcasts I will not listen to until I have finished the season, because I want to. It's just, there's so much joy to be had watching that show. It's just so good.
Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist is absolutely delightful, and I'm going to maneuver one of my I was going to save this for next week, but kind of bouncing off of that, Scott, I didn't expect to love this movie as much as I did, but I finally watched Anna and the Apocalypse, and I really, really liked it.
You did?
Yeah.
Because I was so fucking disappointed.
Oh my god, I was like, I think that the humor is there. I think that the gore is like delightfully over the top, and I really liked the music. I thought that the music fits into that like Be More Chill Dear Evan Hansen style of musical, where it's that very like upbeat Taylor Swift inspired pop. And I liked that, with the exception of one song, which is to me the worst song in the movie, none of the songs really acknowledge that it's about zombies. Like, the songs would have fit in as just like a musical that takes place in a high school between like two people falling in love for the most part, and it just happens that zombies are involved in it. But yeah, I was watching it last night with just the biggest smile on my face, just like, this is nice, I'm enjoying this, I'm in a happy place. So I want to give that a shout out, and I do want to give a shout out to a documentary that a friend of Brian and I's made that is now available on Amazon. Scott, you can skip it because it'll make you feel things, and I know you kind of want to avoid that. But it's a doc called Waldo on Weed, and it's about a guy. Him and his wife live in Philadelphia, and their 6-month-old is diagnosed with eye cancer, and they basically risk going to jail for a very, very long time to get him the CBD oils that he needs to help fight the eye cancer when he continues to get nauseous and sicker from the chemotherapy. And they read online that it was a good way to like help their baby get through the chemo. So it's a very heartwarming and beautifully made doc from my friend Tommy, who at this point has made 3 perfect documentaries in my eyes. He made that, I Am Santa Claus, and the Bill Murray stories, and he's really doing something out there. All right, well, that was Nightbeast from 1982. I almost wanted to say 90 there, but this thing looks like it's from the 70s. So 1982 as picked by Brian. Next week, we're going to jump into a movie that I also thought Brian picked, but turns out it was a Scott pick. And you know, I mentioned Night Flyer earlier. That might be a decent double feature for the movie that we're watching next week. So stay tuned.
Ba-ba-da-ba.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.